Welcome to the Beyond the Bones podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Peter DeNoble. I'm very grateful to have Dr. Suhel Ahmed here with me today.
Yes.
And I think we're going to have a really interesting discussion about some of the things that you've gotten into professionally and your specialty, building a practice, and other interesting topics. So, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's my first official guest podcast, so
Mm.
I've listened to.
Oh, I didn't know that. All
Yeah,
right.
I've never actually done a. I've done interviews, but never on a
All
podcast.
right. Well, this is a little more long form, so we get to dive a little deeper.
That's fine.
Um, you know, I don't need to introduce you since you're right here, but I mean, other than I will say that I've admired your work from a practice building perspective. I think I know that you're double board certified in obesity
Yes.
medicine and internal medicine,
Yeah.
general
So
medicine.
okay. So I've been internal medicine boarded forever, since 2008 when I first came out of residency. After that, I kind of saw something I was interested in obesity medicine. So, in the state of Jersey, I think I'm the third guy to be boarded in obesity medicine. So, I've been doing this for a while.
Mm.
I liked it. I liked the idea of it, and it's just something that was really personal to me. I was telling patients to lose weight, and I was heavier than them. It kind of seemed silly to me. I was like, there's got to be something better, and I really didn't want to. I didn't meet the criteria for surgery, and I was really wasn't interested in surgery, so started looking into it, and there was a couple of things, and then I read about new things coming in the market that now have arrived, but we knew they were coming years ago. So it was really an area of interest for me, and the research behind it, and as well as like just how many new things are coming. It's just the
Yeah.
most emerging market out there, and it's a $1 trillion market. And if somebody gets a magic bullet, and they're getting closer and closer, every iteration of these medications is getting closer and closer, and every combo, and you're going to see more and more new combos. It's going to be a very, very fascinating growth, and that's kind of what we're seeing now, like with all these um, internet and social media. People are learning about these meds, but we knew about these for a while. And now, because of everyone else, it's getting a little harder to get them. But there's new drugs coming out that are even better.
Hmm.
And it's going to be revolutionary. Like, it's an exciting, exciting time
Yeah.
for bariatric medicine, at least.
I think we've all in the last 6 months probably have all seen, and maybe predates that, but I feel like a lot has happened in our world, right? Chat
Yeah.
GPT didn't exist and now it does. It's like completely like overnight, all of a sudden we're all like in this world of AI and focusing on it and like being like, okay, it's real. But at the same time, a lot of these obesity meds came out
Yeah.
and started revolutionizing, the ability to sort of, at least,
So
for a lot of people, lose weight, who couldn't lose weight.
they work on a fascinating parts. I mean, the most popular one is right now semaglutide, which is basically the once a week injection known when it's treating diabetes, it's Ozempic. When it's treating weight loss, it's Wegovy. But there's a new one, Monjaro, which is dual therapy, which is a GLP and GLP-1. There's a new one coming out, which is called ratutatide, which is going to be the triple G. So it's glucagon, GLP-1, and GLP. So it's even stronger
Mm,
and better. So they're it's going to be very interesting. The biggest barrier to it now is going to be basically insurance coverage.
mm.
And what you're going to see is that eventually the insurance companies are going to have to give in and start, everyone's going to have to get coverage for it.
You know, it's interesting. The I want to get into the physiology in a minute
Of
because I think we had a discussion a few weeks ago, and I think you kind of broke it down really simply for me. And I'm just a dumb bone doc, but
course.
I quickly caught on to the concept of it. Um, but uh, but what's interesting is I've seen reports now, as we come around towards the time when insurance companies have to assess their premiums. And they're saying, well, the premiums are going up this year because, and they point their finger at, oh, because of the Ozempic medications and that group of medications. And I always find it very interesting. um, you would think on the longer arc of things, if people are not overweight, you're not going to have all of the downstream problems that come with metabolic syndrome, come with all the different problems knee replacements might go down. I mean, there's all sorts of things that
You're 100% correct. So I think, and I'll be honest with you, I think the insurance companies are fudging the data.
full of something.
Yeah, basically, because
Okay.
what happens is, and in my practice as well, we'll have guys come in that are 45, 50 on 10 different medications, like, one sneeze away from a heart attack. They'll lose 50, 70, 100 pounds. They're barely on one medication. They're the healthiest they've ever been, and you've increased their longevity. You've increased their quality of life. It's not just about longevity for us, it's about quality of life. Like, I mean, for you, I mean, you get a guy who's 400 pounds. There's no way this guy's knees aren't going to crack in the next 5 years, or his back isn't going to
Right.
hurt.
What's
You,
that cost? What's the cost to
right.
that? Right.
And they know this. I mean, these guys are smart, but
Yeah.
they will find any reason to
Right.
jack up the premium, and they live quarter by quarter as well. So, like,
Yes. Right.
they're not worried about the next 5 year, how much it's going to help. And also, so we have about a third of our patients, and the data shows about a third of people who have already had bariatric surgery, and
Mm.
they basically come back and they gain the weight. And there's a huge, and it's actually there's a scientific reason for it. So if you want to talk about it a little quickly, so what causes people to gain weight? Your weight is dictated by your mother's mother, your grandmother, on your mother's side. When your mother is an embryo, her eggs basically have fat cells, and depending on which egg comes out will dictate your weight.
Mm.
And this is one of the things that, like, people don't realize. A lot of people think that, oh, it's all about willpower. It's not. There's basically two dueling hormones in our body. There's leptin and there's ghrelin. If you're lucky, like my younger brother is, we're the same age, essentially, that you're younger, he doesn't really gain weight. His leptin and ghrelin ratios are great. So leptin makes you feel full, ghrelin makes you hungry. If you are lucky and you have a lot of leptin in your system, then you can eat 10 ounces of something and you're fine. If you have very little leptin, you can eat 100 ounces of something and you're still not fine. What happens is that leptin and ghrelin, some people, the people who are like 600 pounds, 700 pounds that we see on TV, those guys have a leptin ghrelin deficiency. They have a breakdown in that pathway. Because normally, once you get to a certain point, when your stomach stretches out, it releases leptin. When your stomach is empty, it releases ghrelin.
Hmm.
I mean, this is really oversimplification, but that's really the basic way to look at weight and hunger.
Hmm.
Weight is basically dictated by your hunger levels. So the more leptin your body has, the fuller you get quicker. The more ghrelin your body has, the hungrier you get quicker. These GLP-1s work really well in decreasing the ratio. They increase your leptin, they decrease your ghrelin. One of the reasons people lose weight when they have bariatric surgery, especially the gastric sleeve, is the gastric sleeve basically cuts. It's called a sleeve. What they do is they make the stomach, which looks like a kidney bean, essentially, look like a tube. And the part they take out is the part that secretes most of your body's ghrelin.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
they take out the part that's causing hunger. So it's not just the stomach is
Right. It's
smaller,
not just a volume
it's not a
size.
volume size, it's a hormonal change as well,
Yeah.
which is really, really helpful. But one of the things, unfortunately or fortunately, is that the human body is very, very adaptive. And over the course of time, usually it takes 2 years, 3 years, your body can start getting new sites where they start producing ghrelin. So it can go downstream into duodenum, it can go downstream into your
Mm.
jejunum, and that area of your stomach, or actually your small intestine, and start creating ghrelin again. Because your body is saying, hey, I don't have ghrelin. I'm missing ghrelin. I'm not hungry as I used to be. I have a small site here. I'm gonna just cause some hypertrophy and bring the ghrelin back up. So that's why a lot of those people gain weight. It's not that they've changed their willpower, they've changed their life. They were missing ghrelin for 3 years, and now all of a sudden it's back. And now they're in a constant state of hunger that they never had before.
What percentage of people would you say who go through that kind of band or some kind of
We have the
that?
data. So we have the data. About a third of them, approximately 30% of
So
people,
a third of them
will gain
will
the
kind
weight
of
back
regain the weight,
and feel
presumably
healthy
because they've regrown ghrelin
and
secreting
re-expanded their
cells.
stomach as well. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the interesting things about this GLP-1s is that there's also data now that shows that it helps with alcoholism and it helps with drug abuse, because what
Mm.
it does is it works also in your pituitary gland. So it changes your cravings. So when you don't have these hormones, you don't have these cravings.
Hmm.
So when you have, like, these GLP-1 specifically, that's like the big hot one now. All the GLP guys, you basically drink less, you eat less, and you have less cravings. So they are using it now to treat, actually looking into at least treating addictions. There's other data that shows it decreases heart attacks and strokes. There's other data that shows helps increase your fighting potential for decreasing your risk of cancer. So overall, these drugs are great, even if you're not overweight and not diabetic. The plus and minus, the pros are really, really good for it.
Yeah. There, now I'm sure as with all medications, right? There's always some adverse or downstream side effects that you got to be careful with.
Mhm.
You don't want to just throw this stuff in the water.
Right.
What are like some of the things that you have to be careful with, or what are any
Again,
contraindications?
the major contraindication really is MEN type 1, which literally nobody has, and also medullary thyroid cancer, which
Okay.
is actually on in the is a black box warning. But reality is we don't have many GLP-1 receptors in our thyroid. They did a test on rats, and the rats they were given, instead of giving say 1 unit, they were giving them 1,000 units, letting it hypertrophy as much as possible. They dissect the animal afterwards, and they see where what activation happened, what changes happened,
Hmm.
and they had hyperplasia of the thyroid cells. They didn't have thyroid cancer, but they had hyperplasia of the thyroid cells, especially the medullary thyroid cells.
Okay.
So what they found was that in theory, theoretically, it's possible for humans to get medullary thyroid cancer. But in reality, over the hundreds of thousands, no one's ever gotten it. And we know the data behind it. We don't know anyone who's ever gotten it. But that's the biggest thing. The most acute thing is you can sometimes end up getting really sick if you're dosed improperly. So if it's a bell curve. So if you give it to 100 people, 99% of people are going to handle it fine. There'll be that one person who just is so sensitive to medication that they'll be nauseous, they'll vomit, they'll have diarrhea one day to the second day, and then it goes away. Then you just have to decide whether your body does eventually acclimate to it. So you may or may not want to try it again. Most patients are willing to risk it, but that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Like, and also you have to just make sure that you're able to stay up on your hydration, because not only does it kill your appetite, it kills your your thirst centers
Mm,
as well. So
okay.
it's one of the other things we always tell our patients: make sure you're drinking enough water, even if you're not even if you're not eating.
Okay.
The human body is very interesting. Like I talk about this with my patients all the time. The whole idea of intermittent fasting. I know you were doing that for a while, right?
I've dabbled in it. Yeah. Most of it just because I'm just, yeah, we're too busy to grab breakfast. But
No, but intermittent fasting is brilliant. It's how the body was designed until like breakfast didn't start until like 1400s or 1500s, right? Like we didn't
right.
have electricity, we didn't have fridges, we didn't have like, a place to store food essentially. Majority of us ate one meal a day and your body adapts to that one meal a day.
Mhm.
That's probably the healthiest way to do it. And there's data that shows that when you do intermittent fasting, your cells basically start coming back and you start rejuvenating your cells.
Right.
So there's a lot of data behind it, and like a lot of us eat socially. Like I can say for myself, like even if I'm not hungry at lunch, I eat lunch because I know that's when half of my day is done in my head. And I'm
right.
probably not hungry. It's just because I'm not, because I have a big dinner and I'm not hungry at 12 or 1.
I will say that's one of the benefits of being, busy, being someone, in, you know, I enjoy sleeping as long as possible and trying to cut myself as close as possible. So I'll get dressed, run downstairs. I'll have, grab a cup of coffee, but I very infrequently eat. And then when I'm so busy as a surgeon during the day, I'll skip lunch routinely. And then I'm already into dinner. So kind of by default, I sometimes end up
But that's
intermittent
probably you're
fasting.
probably doing yourself a favor. To be honest with you, you're probably doing yourself a favor. It's a lot of us eat socially. Like it's just it's you're programmed into, when your body gets used. Your body says, "Hey, it's time to eat," because you have an internal circadian rhythm, and your circadian rhythm's like,
Mhm.
"Hey, it's time to eat now." But if you were to train yourself to eat once a day, or to train yourself to, um, have something small instead of something heavy, it's probably better for you. To be honest with you, it probably is just it's really hard because in our offices, we get food delivered all the time.
Right.
Somebody comes in, they drop off 10, and even if I'm not
Drop
hungry,
off the donut
yes,
box. How many times they do
they
that?
do it all the time, and it's
In an
funny.
obesity office.
It's funny. It's
They
funny,
drop off
but like
12 donuts.
I have a hard time saying no. I don't know. I just want to taste it. It's just one of those
That's
things.
why donuts exist, man.
Yeah, they're
We
awesome.
can't help ourselves sometimes because they taste so damn good. But yeah, It's in the microbiome, I think also is something that's completely poor
Yeah.
and very poorly understood still. We I think we understand enough to know that it has profound effects on us. We just don't exactly know how to
So
manipulate it.
that's really interesting too, because there is data that shows like, in fact, most people don't know this, but like serotonin, 95% of it is made in your gut.
Mm,
So most of your anxiety, people who have anxiety, if you treat the gut, it actually helps decrease their anxiety. So one
it's
of the
crazy, right? Because
it's insane. You don't
we
think about
thought we've been treating the head the whole time, but so much of
there's
your
so much of your body's your whole GI tract has a more complicated neural system than a lobster or starfish. It's a phenomenally complicated system. And like anytime you go in there, you can shock it, you can wake it up, you can stun it. But like one of the best things about gut flora, what we're realizing, if you took the gut flora of some of a rat that was thin, you put it into a rat that was heavy,
yes,
the
yes,
rat actually gets thin again.
gets thin again.
So nobody understands exactly how it works, but they've actually done studies, and this came out not too long ago, which showed that if you were to eat a meal, say you're eating a meal,
Hmm.
and you have an option of eating a salad, a rice, and then a piece of chicken, the order of how you eat it actually makes a
Hmm.
difference. So if
Yeah.
you have the salad first, your gut flora actually digests better. You actually do better for your body than if you have the rice first or if you have the chicken first.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the or even just the order of food that you eat actually makes a huge difference in your system.
Which is kind of funny, not funny, but like it's kind of interesting because we've been doing we there's a natural balance to the order that we normally will eat a
Right.
meal like at a restaurant. You'll get a salad first. There's It's not just because oh well salad goes first. Like that's just the convention. There may be like actually some science behind that
Yes.
order.
Interesting enough, in Europe they do the salad last. A lot of European countries, like the French, I think they eat salad last. I don't know why, but
Maybe they got to switch
they also eat croissants every day, so they're lucky.
because they're smoking and drinking and seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's so
there you
much
go.
drinking. That's it.
They're relaxed though. They have probably better serotonin.
And to be honest, I think that's like one of the main thing that I tell my patients: stop working so much, stop doing so much. Like I have patients that are like, they're our age. I'm like 45, they're in their 40s. They'll work 40 hours a day, and then they'll drop two kids off there, then they'll do something. So by the time they don't have time to relax, and so they're
Mhm.
in a constant state of just stress and anxiety all the time. And what that does is it messes up your hormones,
Mhm.
messes up your sleep pattern. So you're constantly craving sweets, you're constantly
Yeah.
craving food because your body's doesn't have a chance to relax. And that's like the optimum human person should only work 4 hours a day. We should have the rest of in an ideal world.
How are you doing with that?
No,
That's good.
I work 70, like, I mean, this is the problem with, like, same as for you, like, it's whenever you start a new venture, you
Yeah,
have to be present at all times, and,
yeah. It's one of those things where when you have um the ambition as an entrepreneur to start something, you have a vision for something, you can't just chill out because that won't fulfill your purpose. And so you go about it and you start it. But it's once you start up that climbing that mountain, once you start climbing that rock face, you're in the middle. You
yeah,
can't
you
stop and
can't
say, I'm
stop.
gonna just chill out. You gotta keep going. Um,
It's starting a new practice after having a very cush practice in the past. Like I was with another group for a while, and I had a great life. I worked 3.5 hours, made great money. I was doing really comfortable. I was traveling every weekend. I was really enjoying life, and then
Too much. You were enjoying too much. You had to
a little
stop
too much. So then the
that.
group decided we decided to part ways. They went one way. I came by myself, and I had a different vision for what I want to do.
Mhm.
Like we wanted to be like a primary care weight loss wellness center. Like we wanted to really take our time with our patients and kind of do it differently. Like really get to know our patients. Like really take care of people. Like not just be a meal where you come in, get your prescription, and you walk out. Like we really get to know our
Yeah,
patients, and that I think is knock on wood. That's been like the thing that's been kind of where we differentiate ourselves because we're not hospital owned. We're private, so there's nobody telling us, "Oh, you have to see your patients in 10 minutes and then they have to go." Like
that's
that's
a really important point. I think patients and the public in general understand that really well now because I think we've gone through enough turnover where 70% of all physicians are now employed. So more better chance than not as a patient, you're going to encounter an employed physician group.
right.
And when you encounter an employed physician, whether it's your primary doctor or a surgical subspecialist, that experience is markedly different, and you know the difference. You know it as the
Yeah,
patient because you can't get someone on the phone. You can't get the doctor to respond to a phone call. You may not even get the same doctor the next time, and your appointments are this small.
right.
And guess what? You're just part of a mill.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we are willing to not make as much money, but give the right experience. Like I can honestly tell you, like I know my patients very very well. They know me well. Majority of them, a lot of them have my number. A lot of them know how to reach me, and that's by design.
Hmm.
Like I could easily not do it, but it's by design because I don't want a patient load of 72 patients that I don't know. When my patients call me, 90% of the time, I already know what I'm gonna say to them before I walk in the room because I know them. I know what their
Right.
concerns are.
That's like a little bit old school, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
it
mean
used to
that
be
was our
like
point.
your
Yeah,
doctor used to know you.
that
You're
that
like, this is our specialty. It's
yeah.
like our special differentiator is that I know you. It's like crazy that that's a differentiator for a doctor these days, but it is.
Yeah, because it's not a business for us. That's the difference. It's not like it's there's not somebody else telling our doctors or our APNs or our PAs how much time you can spend with the patient.
Mhm.
If you feel like you need to spend 25 minutes with the patient, we're okay with that. And then if you're backed up, one of the other people will be seen by somebody else. They'll say, "Hey, your doctor's backed up. Would you want to wait, or you want to see somebody else?" And we do that all the time in our practice. Like, we'll have sometimes
Yeah.
we have to call the emergency room because the patient's hypotensive or they have EKG changes. So guess what? That doctor or APN or PA is locked in for the next 25 minutes, but we don't want somebody to wait. So, but we want to have that kind of care where everyone takes care of their patients and
Mhm.
everyone we all have our own following. Like I have my following, Linda
Yeah.
has her following, Dr. McCoy has her following. We all have our own patient following. So it's of course we can cross cover the notes are there, but you really build a relationship with your patient.
Mhm.
Like I love my patients. My patients know me. They're my friends. Like majority of my patients are like half of them are my colleagues. So it's actually funny, but it's true. Like I mean the funniest thing about our practice, and this is I guess I shouldn't say this, but I don't care. I'm gonna say it anyway. Majority of the hospital's doctors and the corporate suite are our patients. Even though they have their own doctors, they see us, and that tells me a lot about their own opinion of what they feel about their doctors. So
There you go.
you could take it for what it is, but
Yeah.
the fact is, if you walk in my waiting room, you're gonna see MDs from other places that have their own primary cares that
Yeah. It's
they
that two-tier system, right? It's like you want the ability to have access to the best,
right
but if you're privileged enough to have that or to know
right.
who to go to versus here's what we're going to provide to the masses, and
Right.
this was most
That
profitable for our
that
system.
that's see that that's a difference. Like we're willing to take the hit on profitability to basically grow and basically give better care. Because what happens is when one patient comes to us, 95% of the time they're gonna send us the rest of their family. And
Yeah.
that's literally how we've been growing. Like whenever one person comes, like, hey, would you see my father? Would you see my brother? Would you see my son? And that's I mean, that's really we get families. We don't get just one patient. We literally get families. And that's really where our rapid growth has come from. It's organic. It's not because, patients are just coming in. They're coming in because they're switching from somebody else. Somebody else told them, "Hey, go here instead. Try these guys out." And that's how we've been able to grow this practice so quick. Is because we have
I mean, I can't think of anyone else right now, off the top of my head at least, who is in primary care, especially, you know, forging ahead and finding space in this very caustic environment in healthcare like you're doing. So I think whatever you're, what not whatever you're doing, what you are doing, what you just explained you're doing, and I know that you're expanding and you're very popular, like you were talking about off camera, but you're very, you have a lot of following, a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of it's you as the main, the
yeah.
CEO, and but it's also the culture. It's also the vibe, the love that people feel when they come into your practice. That means something. It's found very few places in healthcare, I think, these
One of the
days.
things that we did different, like one of our differentiators, is our staff are very happy.
Hmm.
It's a fascinating thing, but what we've learned from like just doing our research and stuff is that like when you have happy people working for you or working with you at least, everyone's experience is good. And we go out of our way to make our staff happy. Like we go like above and beyond.
Hmm.
And that's done intentionally. Like we pay above market for all of our staff gets paid really well. Means we get a little means I make a little less more, a little less. I'm okay with it because you know what? If my staff is
Hmm.
happy, they're gonna do more, they're gonna take more off my plate and they're gonna make sure that my patients are happy.
It's
Like,
very important.
and
And
it's so important, and that's the one difference, I mean, in corporate world or in, like, corporate
I'm
medicine,
not sure if that's part of
that
the private equity playbook is
they
to
don't
make your
care,
staff
like, I mean,
better paid.
their point is to take every nickel out they can.
Yeah.
Our point is we're willing to give a little bit more because we want happy people working for us.
At the end of the day, what's it all about? Is it
Right.
about figuring out how to get a quarterly earnings report optimized, or is it about creating an environment that's really what we went into medicine for in the
Right.
first place, which is happy patients doing better and becoming healthier?
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what you're 100% right. It's basically our patients probably, and I don't have the complete data, but I would put my patient list up against anyone's patient list and say that my patients are happier, healthier, and better treated. And one of the best things that we've done is that we're open 7 days a week. We're open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 9 to 5 on weekends. So we literally are available. There's no reason any of our patients have to go to urgent care.
Yeah,
So when you go to urgent care, and people don't realize this, but when you go to an urgent care, not that it's urgent care doctor's fault, but they have no blood work on you. They don't have an EKG
they
on
don't know
you.
you.
So they don't know you. They don't know what your comorbidity is. They're not going to take a risk and give you the best medication they can with all the knowledge they can. They're going to give you the safest medication they can until you follow up with their primary care. So we get a lot of patients that like, that had gone to a primary urgent care for what they were down the shore and the medication wasn't the best medicine. We'll change it. But we tell them, listen, you can always just call us. We can do a telephone call. And they're like, you're open? I'm like, yeah, we're open. I mean, I should advertise it more, but I mean, the reality is I thought most of our patients know, but a lot of them still haven't figured out that we're really available. Like we're always there. Like
Yeah, yeah.
and then the funniest thing is I'm the only one on call for my group because we're open till 8 p.m. We really rarely get like maybe one or two calls, but patients can always find us, and that's really been the other really big differentiator for us and other private practices around us is that like we're literally available all the time, and there's always someone available to answer the questions or someone
Mm,
to talk to, and it really makes like we have some patients that are very complicated, like really like transplants and stuff like that, and I don't trust them in urgent cares. Like I don't want them to go to an urgent care
right. Well, that's,
because
yeah, you have to, to boot up to understand all of their medications and all of the
right,
sensitivities that they have from this and that. You know that in the back of your head when you have a great relationship with someone, like anyone would with
right.
any relationship.
Right, and it's not the urgent care's fault. I mean, the
No, they
urgent
don't have
care
time for
doctors,
this.
they don't have time for that, and it's not their responsibility. You're there, you're sick, you're cold, but some antibiotics aren't great if you're post kidney transplant or you're post liver transplant. Some things just aren't meant for you if you have renal insufficiency. And
Mhm.
we know that because we have the records, we have ability, and I know I if you tell me a patient's name, 90% of the time I can tell you their med list off the top of my head because I know them. I know what conversations I've had with them. And that's what our differentiator is. All of our doctors are very good at knowing their patients. Like and that I think is and the patients know that.
Yeah.
Like when the patients come in, like I know who has twins. I know who has
Mhm.
like who's going through a divorce. I know whose dad just died. I know this because I talk to them.
Yeah.
So when I talk to them, like you're not depressed. You're going through grief. It's normal.
It's normal. Yeah.
You don't need medicine. Just you need time and stuff like that. It's important for us to basically treat the patient and the person, not just the numbers and stuff. And that's what I think our patients know this about us. Like they know that we're going out of our way to make sure, and they know we'll do everything we can.
So, what you've done is something unique, crazy as it is. You put a lot of time and energy and love into your practice. What's your vision? Maybe this is a trade secret, but what's the vision for where you're going with this? I mean, you've expanded it substantially in the last couple of years. Only been a couple of years.
So we are we're growing rapidly. We are growing. We're in 6 locations, 2 years. We're getting a ton of new consults all the time. We really want to expand, but we want to keep the same level of care. Like each doctor should know their patient inside out. we want little boutique mom and pop shops in different locations.
Mm,
Like when you walk into an office and that's your doctor, and they're gonna know you inside out. So the plan is what we're looking to be honest is like we're trying to find and hire people who have the same vision as us, who actually care about, and it's not a job, it's a calling. And that's where I think the differential is like our doctors generally care about their patients. They
mhm.
generally know their patients, and the patients know that they're well taken care of. And like, the reality is not every doctor is going to be a fit for every patient, but you're never going to come into our office and be like, oh, I was treated wrong or that I was treated harshly. They may say, well, you didn't do enough because certain people, you know, they just don't understand that a lot of the stuff is not in our control. It's in
Right.
the insurance company's control. Like I can prescribe. This is like our biggest complaint is I'll prescribe something that I think is best for the patient.
Mhm.
The insurance company will say, "Oh, yeah, we're not paying for this. We're going to give you the lowest tier one." And I'm reluctant to do it because I know this is better, and if had a better insurance plan, and most patients don't understand that there's tiers to insurance plans
Yeah.
and they don't like, "No, I have insurance." Yeah, you
So
do,
complicated.
but it's so complicated. I don't understand all of them. I
No.
tell them like, "Listen, I'll prescribe it. If it gets covered, that's great. If it's not, we'll send something else." But that's a horrible way to like have to practice medicine. Like I would love a world where
Yeah.
I prescribe something and the insurance company just pays for it. I mean, they're practicing medicine without practicing medicine. They're dictating what the patients get, and a lot of like luckily most of a lot of my patients are in healthcare. They're doctors, they're nurses, they're PAs, they're APNs, so they know, or they work in hospitals, so they know what it's like. But a lot of other patients that I have don't understand that, and they're like, "Why can't I get this?" I'm like, "You can. It's just you might have to pay for it."
Not
And
gonna get covered. Yeah. It's not
some
on your
some of
formula.
them some of them do pay for it, and some of them don't. But it's just
And these policies continuously change, always for the worse in
yeah,
terms of coverage. So you never know. And it's as a consumer, it's almost impossible. Even if you think you know, tomorrow things just completely
yeah.
changed.
It's horrible. Like Hackensack now has three tiers of insurances. There's a tier one, two, and three and like one doesn't cover obesity medicine, two and three does. I didn't know that till like 2 days ago
Oh wow.
because somebody
Right.
told me. I mean, and it's not just Hackensack. Only reason I say Hackensack is majority of my patients come from the hospital, but it's not Hackensack. It's a lot of these
Yeah.
systems and a lot of these
Well, it's
insurance
probably
companies.
like a Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Yeah, it is.
so it's just a big dominant insurance carrier, in our state. So, you know, it's crazy what we as doctors have to, and no one wants to hear doctors complaining, but the reality is, that there's a reason why doctors are burned out. It's not because we're not resilient. Resilient, you see these
Right.
resilience modules now. The solution for a lot of these, for the burnout is
It's
actually for administrators to give us resilience modules to learn how to meditate. Like, give me a break.
No, I mean, the answer is let us practice medicine freely. Let us see our patients and treat them properly, and let us do what we think is best. Because I promise you, 99% of doctors that went into medicine generally want to do good for their patient. I mean, yeah, the world is a bell curve. You're going to have that 1% that's horrible, it's a horrible human being, and that 1% that's a saint. But the majority of us, I mean, we're skewed demographic because we all went into medicine.
Yeah.
If you let doctors prescribe, see the right patient, and take and deal with that, I promise you, medicine would be a very different world. People would be happier. The reason doctors burn out is once you're done with that, then you have to fill out 52 forms
Hmm.
and prior auths and all this other stuff
Right.
that didn't happen 50 years ago, didn't happen 20 years ago, didn't happen when I started medicine 15 years ago. It wasn't like this.
Well, also just the administrative burden has it's not just the administrative burden. I think there's the administrative burden component on top of the fact that part of that administrative burden is that you're chasing denials, meaning you're getting paid less or you're getting no paid for stuff that you've done. Imagine a plumber came to your house and fixed all your pipes and then walked away and then gave you a bill and you said, I'm not going to pay that.
Right.
I'm denying it. It wasn't done, in a timely way, or it wasn't done in a this, that, and the other. Well, it was done and it's perfect. Sorry, we're not paying it. And that's totally fine. And the plumber has to walk away. You can't run a business that way.
It's unfair because they the insurance companies factor that in. They know they're gonna do it. Like I mean, there's studies that show like this one doctor from I don't remember which company it was. He did like 72 denials of prior auths in a day, and they're like, how long did you spend on each denial? 7 seconds or 5 seconds. Like, did you really read the paper or you just pressed that's how long it takes to press the button denial.
Yeah.
So I mean the problem with having all these huge insurance companies and these huge conglomerates of anything is that they can abuse the system and it's really hard for anyone else to push back.
I sometimes I the term "too big to fail" is kind of like some, but that's not even good enough because it's so market dominant that it's the all powerful,
Yeah,
right? It's regulatory capture when it comes to the federal agencies. So we could go down a rabbit hole with this, and I could talk to you about this all night. But it's frustrating because ultimately it gets in the way of patient care, and
right.
patients feel this, and then they don't know why their doctor isn't available or left the practice or moved out of state, or why they can't get an appointment for 3 months. I can't see rheumatologist. I can't. They're booking into November. I'm like, can't help you. I can't do rheumatology. I'm not a rheumatologist, and there's not many of them. They don't get paid very well. They're 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 scarce. Yet somehow the system isn't supportive. You would think it's a normal supply and demand curve would demand that they would get paid more, so there would be more rheumatologists, and now they would attract. Now you'd have capacity to treat all the patients who are the booming amounts of people with
Right.
autoimmune diseases. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
One of the most oddest things that I've noticed in the last couple of years was with such a need of doctors, physicians in this country, all these residency programs closed down. And it shows what a lack of caring or consideration or I don't know, just maybe it's stupidity. I don't know. The fact that we wouldn't want more residents to open up, more hospitals to have residency programs, so you can train. The need's going to be huge in the next 15
Yeah,
years. Like when all these people start hitting 65, the baby boomers, like you're not going to have enough doctors and you're not going to have enough people. But instead of putting effort into that, they're actually closing down programs. So it's
yeah.
become even scarcer.
But also, even if you train doctors, though, ultimately, a lot of doctors, when they come out, like a family member of mine who went to some great programs, trained, did a fellowship in urogynecology, worked for 1 year, had made some decent money, but then was just in a system where they were going to drop her salary, make it more harder to make more
Right.
money, and that she was dealing with very very complex patients, many who have obesity, and they were just very complex surgeries. And she's just like, I'm done. And she's now working for an insurance company, reviewing claims from home, zero overhead, salary, much easier lifestyle. But we are deprived of all the skills that
Right,
she.
and that itself is a shame. I mean, I tell this to all the doctors that I know, like that want to retire. I'm like, just go part time. You're needed. The need is there. We need you. Like we need these guys. Like we need. And the problem is that the system is designed in a way for profits above all else. They literally. I think one of the most horrible things about healthcare in this country is that it's a lot of it's for profit
Mm,
and
it's all for profit, whether it says
it's for
nonprofit or
not for
not.
profit or for profit. But what happens is that somewhere along the line, the lines kept moving every year.
Mm,
Like when it was first not for profit, it was okay because the physicians did everything, they did the best, and you made money. Then it became okay, the physicians did everything, but somebody else is going to make this decision. Now, over time, the pendulum has shifted from doctors making decisions to insurance companies dictating this is covered, you're going to get this procedure, you have to wait 3 months. I order MRIs for patients that obviously need it. And I know, and I know it, but they're like, nope, the patient needs 6 months of PT and then 6 weeks of PT, and then we can order look at the MRI. And I'm like, so you're gonna make them go to PT, suffer for 6 weeks,
yeah,
but it's stupid, but that's just the way the system is. And somewhere along the line, physicians and people who actually touch the patient and see the patient,
yeah.
care for the patient, have lost control of
Well,
medicine.
and I've made a couple posts about this, but I first learned about this a few months ago, when the writers were going out on strike,
Right,
right? Um, so what's going on now is that now the actors are on strike, right?
right,
And what they're striking about is a number of things, but one of the big things is, writers back in the day, if you wrote a hit show for NBC, ABC, one of the big networks, the holy grail is to write a show like Seinfeld. You're the writer, you're the creator, you get it to syndication,
right.
So they only buy the rights to a certain amount of. I may have this wrong slightly, but you know they have to purchase the amount of
Right.
shows. Once you hit a certain amount, like 100, I forget what the number is, you can reach syndication. Now that can then get sold around the in different markets all around the world. So each time it hits a new market, you get paid. You get paid because as you should,
Right.
because they're
It's your
making
work.
they're making their money.
Right.
Well, what happens now with the streaming platforms is that you get one lump sum that covers the entire world. So basically, if you create a show, they'll pay you a flat fee. Um, I may be simplifying this, but basically this is the issue. There's no more syndication opportunities. There's nothing. So the guy from Squid Game
Yeah.
who wrote
Right. Yeah.
Squid Game, he got paid, I forget how much, but they made 900 billion million something. It was like
Like an insane number.
just an insane number. The guy made like not even a touch of a percentage compared to what he probably should have done
Right.
for such a successful viral show. And that's at the top end when someone's really successful. So you'd have to pre-negotiate the amount up front. So only the people that have the most juice would get paid in the beginning, one lump sum. The rest, any creator that's really creative and doesn't incentivize new thoughts, new creators,
Right.
new writers to get into the business. And that industry is no different. It's becoming so top heavy with those that are really driven by shareholder profits, quarterly profits, at the detriment of all the creators, all the workers, the people that create the product. And I do find that there's a lot of parallels
Yes.
with our healthcare system now, and there are other industries that are just like that. Um,
I'm sure. I know. I've always wondered about physician unions. Like, could we unionize? I don't know if we can or not. Some people say we can't. I know residents are doing it now, and I see like the outcome is great, and I'm all for it.
yeah.
I don't. I just don't know if
Well,
I thought we couldn't, and I don't
as
know.
we, my understanding is, look, I mean, you and I have our own businesses.
Right.
So we can't be part of the same union because it moves up towards antitrust issues, and that's really the rub. Since we don't all kind of work for, um, the same company, but because there's so many doctors now employed by either big staffing companies or big hospital systems,
Right.
those doctors can unionize, and in some places they have. Um, but it's still pockets, right? It's still not
Right.
a national union. And I think that we're at the point now where I think as things continue to consolidate, as we continue to get rolled and rolled and rolled, I mean, we are going to get to a point where we'll have the opportunity, probably we're all going to be employed under under, or at least under the um, control of a singular or a common entity. You will have the opportunity to then turn and say, you know what, it's time to unionize because we're getting totally frozen out of any of the value that we're providing for patients.
Yeah,
And
you're 100% right. Actually, and I was wondering about that, but yeah, that makes the most sense because I feel like right now the legislators are all controlled by donations. The donators are obviously the insurance companies and the big
right,
hospital brands and these big monopolies that own all the stuff. Like you individual physicians have a hard time.
yeah,
You're not going to match a $10 million donation, and I,
we tried it.
yeah, I remember, but it's not going to work. And the other thing is, until patients are a little more aware of what's going on, patients, a lot of them, I mean, and it's not something unless you're in it, it's important. But when you're sick, that's the only time it's important.
It's crazy, right? We're patients at certain moments in our lives, and all that matters is getting the best care.
Right.
But as soon as you're better, oh, such a relief, which is great. And then you kind of want to forget the system because it's there for you, but you don't want to
No,
bother yourself. You got other stuff going on. I totally understand about that. So I never expect, the public or patients to really understand it, or really even care to a point where they're actually going to be out there, rallying with picket signs. It's just not going to happen. The same way we're not doing it for the actors because Netflix is unjustly, leveraging their power. It's just not going to happen. We're just going to wait and see what happens with the union. But so it really has to be ultimately the doctors who who are, unfortunately exiting medicine early, or retiring early, or going to work for insurance companies. Just and ultimately, you need we need wherever we're growing aging population, we're going to need people to take care of us when we get older. And my hope is that the playing field's leveled out, and people that go into medicine still to this day, who I speak to, young kids, and I have a hard time. I got to bite my tongue sometimes because I'm a little bit jaded. Um, because I love the purity and the zeal of why they're deciding to go into medicine, and
I
I
worry for
remember
them.
that.
Yeah, I worry for them because you have to have a very thick skin to sometimes do what we do. Because even like sometimes I'll do something I know I'm not gonna get paid for it. I don't care because I know it's the right thing to do for the
Of
patient.
course,
And it's odd because a lot of times like you see it and you feel bad because you want to give the patient the best care that you possibly can, but you know it's not going to be covered. And it sucks that one insurance covers something and another insurance doesn't.
right?
One insurance allows this option. And the patients unfortunately don't they're like they don't understand. I'm like, I can do it, but again, if your insurance doesn't pay for it, I don't know what to tell you because it's really hard to pay out of pocket for this stuff. And a lot of my patients do pay out of pocket for a lot of stuff because they're lucky they have the means to do it, and a lot of my patients are pretty well off and they're able to do it, but a lot of them also aren't. And it just sucks that I see the difference between A and B,
Yeah.
and there's not much I can do for it.
Seems like the divide in our society is getting worse when it comes to that too. I mean, there used to be a robust middle class. There used to be a lot of people who have,
Yeah,
decent money, nothing crazy. But now we have people who are like, uber rich, or kind of just on the
making
fridge barely making
barely.
it. Like,
50 years ago, if you worked in a factory, you walked away with a house, a pension, and your kids got to go to college. Nowadays, if you work in a factory, you're working two jobs and you're living in an apartment with four other people. Like the dollar amount has gone down, the cost of living has gone through the roof,
mhm,
and unfortunately, the way the system is designed to basically diminish the labor of people. Like, there's no reason why somebody who works 40 hours a week in this country should not be able to pay their rent and have food on their table. Like, they should
yeah.
be able to. It's unfortunate that we've got to. I don't care where you work. Work is work. If you're working in McDonald's or you're working in an office, if you can't pay your rent, you can't pay your bills, then you're not being paid enough.
You think it's just a matter of just the powers that be it insurance companies, Netflix, all these big companies, Amazon, basically having the power to offer, like, put other businesses out of business that are competitors, and ultimately offering jobs that are only paying, minimum wage or a little bit above that.
What happened was that there was a time in this country where the politicians cared about the middle class, where like what, college wasn't $800,000 a year, and you got a nice living income just for working. And yeah, maybe you don't drive a Mercedes, but you at least drive a car. Now it's what's happened is it's basically this creeping of the system where corporations are now people, like Citizens United. That's a Supreme Court decision which made corporations people, and they're able to put money in and they're able to basically buy politicians. So
Mhm.
politicians now, majority of them don't care. Like their
Right,
job is to get reelected, and
right,
they're gonna get reelected with the money. So
and it's
like
all about money.
it's all about money, and the problem is that here's my big dilemma with this country, is that 99% of us all want the same thing,
Yeah,
but somehow they'll find these fringe issues to divide us,
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
make it, oh,
While we're
Republican
all
versus Democrat, right versus left. Meanwhile, 99% of what we all believe in is the same thing. We want good education, we want good healthcare, we want good wages, we want safe streets. There's nobody who's against that. But if you like these red herrings, these things to distract them. Oh, look, this person did this person did that. Without and
right.
people, and then
We're all paying
like
attention to a submarine. Meanwhile,
right.
the entire Earth is burning. Like,
Yeah, it's
that's
it's
crazy.
insane. It's insane because like it's by design. These are the
Yeah,
people who are doing
they're
this,
smart.
they're not dumb.
We're a distractible bunch.
We're a very distractible bunch. Like if you actually put our phone down and basically thought about what we want, like it's not even for people like us, right? I mean, like I worry about the world my kids are gonna go into.
Yeah,
Like I worry about the world that my children are gonna live in. Like, do I want them working 40 hours a week, 70 hours a week just to pay their bills? No. No one should have to work 40, 70 hours just to pay your bills. You should be able to enjoy life. The world has you should be able to take a day off without having to worry about, can I pay my rent? I mean, that's what the world we're becoming, because you know what? Somewhere over the time, like people stopped caring, they stopped looking elsewhere.
right.
And you'll have people who vote against their own interests. Like there's nobody in this country who should vote against Medicaid or funding Medicaid. Like these are the people who need it the most. And I think something like 70 or 60% of people in this country are one paycheck away from being
Yeah,
homeless or on it. Like you,
it's crazy.
but meanwhile, these corporations are paying less. They're monopolizing the conversation. They're controlling the media. They're controlling everything. So you don't even get exposed to anything except what they want you to get exposed to. Like you won't know what's going on unless they want you to know what's going on. And that I think is one of the weird things about social media per se, is that like people go into these echo chambers,
Yeah,
and they'll go into the echo chambers and they'll still keep hearing it, and they'll just get more and more angry and say, oh, this happened and this happened and this
yeah,
happened. And
yeah.
the reality is 90% of that has no bearing on your life.
It takes a lot more than we think to have unique opinions.
Right.
I say that because so much of what we believe in is guided by what we read and hear and learn through what is
Right.
usually something on the phone,
Right.
right? Where do you get most of your media? No one's sitting down in front of the kitchen, TV and watching the 6 o'clock news anymore.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all through an Instagram scroll or a Facebook scroll or
Something
TikTok.
somebody sent you. Yeah.
Or something that it used to be the old email forward, forward, forward,
Yeah.
forward, it's this,
Right.
but it's like that sort of thing. And to truly have, and I talked about this on other podcasts, is like you have to to truly be, we have to be independent investigators of truth. We have to consume other threads that you may say, I don't really like what they're saying, but listen to it.
Yeah.
Think freely about what what's going on here. And also realize that, to what we were saying before, um, there's a lot of firecrackers that get thrown around so that we're paying attention to the firecrackers or the laser pointer, you know. Meanwhile,
Right.
this policy is getting written into this bill and thrown into that, and everything's happening behind the scenes while we're all en masse paying attention to Kim Kardashian or whatever. I mean, these are like major.
And they're done by design. It's done by design. Like
Yeah.
the whole distracting people and taking away from focusing on what's important in life. It's all done by design. Like you get so involved in things that matter nothing to you, because at the end of the day, the powers that be don't want you to pay attention to what's going
Is
on.
there? Let me ask you this though: is there anyone? Because I'm looking at the president, of course, and now we're into presidential season again, coming around the. When is the damn election? Isn't it like a year, over a year from now? 2 years?
2 years, yeah, I think it's 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like these things come around so quick. So they start like 3 years in advance. They start I don't really know if there's even anyone saying anything that's like reasonable. I mean, everyone's having to pick a fringe and running around. It's
I,
wild stuff.
I America's gone through something I've never thought would see. I honestly expected COVID to be handled in a very different way.
You thought it would
And
bring us together?
no, I thought we would deal with it, like shut the country down for a week, get rid of it, and then move on. I generally was like, this is America. We can do anything. Like we can afford a week off. It's not a big deal. Like we would, because this is deadly, but the politicization of it and the complete just like lack of common sense, and like the idea that okay, this is political. It wasn't political. People died. It didn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat. People died, but people were willing to die to not wear a mask, and people like, it's one of those things where like I genuinely have never seen people willing to die for something that means nothing. Like Like
right.
at the end of the
So
day, like
it's amazing though how much purpose uh, supersedes even your own well-being
yeah,
sometimes. So when you find a purpose, regardless of what that may be, maybe it's just being part of the purpose is being a part of a group that believes in this.
yeah.
You see it with cults, you see it with we're
It's
all
just
gonna,
crazy. It's
sacrifice
insane.
ourselves.
Like
So
I generally like I've never in my life thought I would be at that point where people I know personally that were very intelligent people were saying stuff to me, and I was like, That's not real. That's not true."
yeah,
And I just looked at him, and I was like, "Somewhere along the line, like, there's a disconnect to reality." And then the thing that pisses me off is that people don't realize like very few people are out to get you. Nobody's out to get you. Everyone is so self-absorbed in their own life and dealing with their own stuff that majority of people just want to get through their day and want to do what they need to do. Like these people come up with these paranoid things and like stuff
right,
that like in my head I'm just baffled by. And then
yeah,
the problem is they genuinely believe it, and I know them long enough and I respect them long enough to like at least try to tell them, hey, that's probably not true, man. Like,
yeah.
I
I
just
mean, it's interesting because there are like clandestine stuff that happens by design, like we're talking about, while we're all distracted with the latest news issues. So there is sometimes bigger things going on behind the scenes that is happening, but that idea then becomes you can superimpose that on any issue.
right.
You're like, oh, this is all about. So it almost gets to the point where you're like, how do you know what's true? And that's really gets into the whole idea of like, how do you pursue the truth on anything? It's really hard,
It's really just being willing to put your emotions aside and look at facts.
right? And critical thinking.
So one of the things in life is you can't logic with someone who's emotional. If someone got to a decision emotionally,
Yeah.
you're not gonna
You're not going to
logically
argue
get
them.
them
You're
right.
not going to argue them, right?
Because they've already decided that this is what they believe in. The facts will bend to their opinion, and at that point you've already lost that conversation. It's no point in having that conversation. And I've learned not to argue with those people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's, like you said, though, I mean, most people, when you have just more long form conversations, you end up realizing like we're all kind of saying the same thing actually.
Yeah,
But when when you wear like colored hats, it's very clear that like we're on different teams, but like it turns out actually that those are just fake little
yeah,
things.
it's not real. Majority of people, like I mean, majority of people, everyone again in this world, everyone wants the same thing. We all want, we have desires, wants, and needs. We all want our needs met. We want to be able to attain our desire, and then we want to kind of just live our life the way we want without encroaching on other people. And the country used to be like that. Say 10, 15 years ago, you could work a job and kind of come home and you know
Yeah. Well,
relax.
it's also like, that's interesting because it's like the libertarian concept of like everyone just you do you and I'll do me and we'll just don't
Right,
mess with me and you don't. But the problem is we're living in a fishbowl. So like when I do something on my side of the lawn and spray all sorts of chemicals all over the place, it seeps into your lawn next door to me.
right,
So what I do does affect you. Or, on the grand and more macro scale, you've got, what happens. Like you can't just say, well, we're not going to cut emissions. Let them do it, or they're going to do it. We're not going to do it. We're all living in a fishbowl.
right.
We're not living in like multiple planets.
No,
We're all living on one
you're
planet.
100% right. But again, like there has to be there's never an absolute perfect right answer for anything. There's always more than there's always more than 10 ways to get to one point. Some points are going to be right, some points are going to be left, some points are going to be up, some points are going to be harder. But there's more than one way to get to a point. And the reality is that majority of humanity all wants to get to that same point.
Yeah.
Some of us get there quicker, some of us start at an earlier point, some of us start further down in that race, but all of us want to get to that point. But what's happened is that they somehow have convinced a lot of people that there is no point. It's just as long as you're fighting, you're okay,
Mm.
and
Right.
that's all they care.
Fighting for the sake of
For,
fighting.
for
That way
fighting for the sake of fighting, exactly.
whatever say fighting so that I can just while you're fighting, I can go over here and
Right,
do what I need to
and
do.
change the laws, and now corporates pay 2% tax, and you're paying 80%, and
It's
you don't like
wild, it's
it's
wild,
crazy.
but I mean but I do think that listen, I think a lot of it too comes down to, we need a spiritual revolution. I think that's really ultimately what we need. We need to understand that we have a purpose that's not a material purpose, that we do have, something that we could all share, and that we all have commonality, and we're all, human beings that have similar, like you said, similar wants and needs, and focusing on the 99% of things that are we're in common. For some reason, it's just maybe the way our brains like to parse and categorize, but we always try to find the things that differentiate ourselves as opposed to seeing what we
The human brain likes to be in a tribe. One of those things that we know,
yeah,
like the sociologists know, like humans like to be in a tribe. They like to have their people, like, and they need an other so they can have a differentiator.
right.
Now the question is how you deal with the other. Like you can just ignore them. You can be friendly with the other, but still have your own tribe, or you could decide they're enemies, and then that way really rouse up your
Well,
tribe.
that's why we need aliens, man.
Yeah,
We need an
and
alien
then like
invasion. That way we'll
everybody else
all bind together. We'll finally see that we're the
yeah,
same. We actually all look the same.
we all want the same thing, and that's the end of this. It's you're not gonna die with money. You want like I think the purpose of human life is basically to leave the world better than came in. At the
That's
end of the
it.
day, literally, like I want to leave a better world for my children, and like
Yeah.
I want them to have the same motivation to leave a better world for their children. And that's really what life is about. Because like at the end of the day, like we're here for a very fine. We're here for a blink of a second. Like your name is forgotten after 3 generations. Like your kids will remember it, and your grandkids will remember it, but your great grandkids probably won't remember it. But if you do something, you've helped 5 people. You've helped. That's why we went into medicine. So like our lasting impression of people, our lasting influence on people's life, our lasting like how many people we help. That's something that when we die on our deathbed, like hey, I did some good in life.
Well, yeah, you always when you pretty much everyone because when you hear a eulogy about somebody, usually you do you hear about their they don't go into things that were flaws, or they talk about the things that they did that were positive, and you're always like wow, I'm always inspired. I'm always like yeah, like, that's really great, and, like, they really impacted people's lives, and it's so and, you know, I don't think we think about that enough every day in our daily lives, like, what are we doing to have that lasting impact on others? And a lot of it comes down to service to others, how much love are you putting out into the world? How much, are you doing for others? Because that's what's remembered. That's what
That's
has
what's
the most
important, and that's what has the most importance to the world and to you. Like you should dying with $1 million means nothing. You're still gonna die. Like Steve Jobs died with trillions, hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. It didn't matter. He still died. At the end of the day, his lasting impression was, he left behind a great product, great marketing, a great company, but all, you don't take the money with you. So there's no point in worrying. That's kind of my whole philosophy in my company. Is like we're not as money focused as we should be, probably. Like we're doing well.
if you were, if you were a banker,
If I was a banker, I'd worry about every nickel and every dime, and I don't.
right?
And I know that money's I'm spending money more freely than other people would. But you know what? At the end of the day, like if my staff is happy, like I
Comes
want
and goes. Money comes,
yeah,
money
money
goes.
comes and goes. If my
You
staff
gotta
is
be able to pay the
happy,
bills, of course.
as long as we're paying our bills, like I'll pick up an extra shift if we had a hard month. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'll do an extra day here and there if it's been like a very expensive month. Like we had new construction went above budget. I picked up a couple of shifts. It's fine. It'll be okay. But that's my whole point. Is like you want the people around you to. People don't remember what you said to them. They don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel.
Mhm,
That's like
mhm.
the most important thing to remember. That like people will care about how they felt when they were talking to you. They'll care about how they felt when they were around you. Like and even though I'm my staff's boss, I go out of my way to make sure that they understand that I actually genuinely care about them, and that's the most important. Like there has to be something in treating and recognizing people as important to you, no matter what function they're doing for you. Like the lady who cleans me is just as important as my doctors. Like everyone has the same value to me because they all serve a vital function for us. That without them, our company wouldn't be what it is. And I think that's what's the difference between being a private guy and like being a corporate medicine guy, like where
Mhm.
you're
And by the way, doctors who are in corporate medicine aren't happy about it, by the way. They did it because they had to.
right,
They didn't have the balls to do it like the way you did it. It's a huge financial risk. Most We're not business risk
right,
takers. We're doctors. We went into it because we wanted to help people. We didn't go into saying we want to take tons of financial risk and stand up a practice, which is a
yeah,
business. So what you're doing, you are doing because you're unique. And unfortunately, doctors who could do what you're doing don't have the business savvy to ultimately practice the way they wish they could.
right. And that's the thing. I mean, my person, I tell this to all my friends, like you can do it. You just have to find like your niche, like what you're good at, like because if you're good to your patients will send you volume. If you care about your patients, you'll get volume. Like
Hmm.
literally, our whole volume is word of mouth. Our growth is all word of mouth. Like it's literally one patient sending us 10 more patients,
Yeah.
and that's really what it's like. Everyone, but the problem again is like you're right. We're not business people. Like, so I'm lucky in that my VP is an MBA essentially. So she like runs all my numbers. So the finance part, I'm not doing it. Somebody else is doing it,
Right.
but I get to review it. And truth be told, as doctors, we could 100% get our MBA and do the same thing. We just don't have the time because you have to pick, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You have to decide where you want to put your energy in.
That's right.
And if you build the right team, everything gets done for you. And that's really what it was. Like, I just have an amazing team. Like, my managers are amazing. My front desk is amazing. Like, generally, like, as a
I will
patient,
say, and I haven't mentioned it, but my staff is are I totally get it, and we've spent a lot of time, cultivating what I think is a really you know solid staff,
you
just
know,
like just like
even when I came in here and they didn't know who I was, they were very polite, and I was just sitting in the waiting room. Just you have an amazingly gorgeous office, by the way. I don't know if anyone's seen his office. Like I saw it from the outside. The outside does not do it justice. The inside is amazing. It's literally, I was like shocked. I was like, this place is huge, one, and it's just very well designed. It's gorgeous. Like the building
thank you.
is really really nice. Like I was very impressed by it.
But I mean, I think that that's part of it, right? It's like being in a nice space also has to be
Right.
with nice people, and when you can combine all those things, and then by the way, the doctor's really good.
Yeah. No. That's.
Uh,
I mean,
that's You've got the holy grail because that's just not always the case, and it's more and more rare, unfortunately.
yeah,
But
it is rare, and the truth be told, I think the pendulum swings back. So it's always in medicine. There's always a pendulum. What's going to unfortunately happen is the people who can are going to come to the private guys, and the people who can't are probably not going to. And that's really
right,
unfortunate. And like you
the
were saying,
two
the two
tier,
tier system.
yeah, two tier. So it'll be
That's
concierge versus
right,
uh, single payer clinic.
right, and that's unfortunate because like everybody deserves the best healthcare because it's just not right
Yeah,
that some people get it, some people don't. But it's the problem is that not enough people know about it, not enough people are worried about it, and until you're sick, you don't care as much. Like,
right. It doesn't even occur to you until you realize what is this system I'm dealing with? Like, what is this insurance? Why is it giving me a
right,
hard time?
stuff like that. It's interesting.
Oh my god, we could talk about this probably like until midnight.
Yeah,
But I really appreciate you coming by. This was great. I hope you enjoyed your debut.
I did. Yeah, this is really cool. Even though this is such a cool setup, I was actually like, wow, this is
Yeah,
what it feels like. I was very happy. No, I mean, I love the things that you said, and the truth of the matter is that like more people need to hear this. The stuff you were saying is stuff that people don't think about, people don't know, because the truth of the matter is like you only go to your doctor when you have a cough, cold, sick, whatever, or you broke a bone or something. But the reality is, once you learn and you start learning and you care about where you're going, it's going to make a difference for you. Because the worst thing you can do is go to the wrong person or the wrong system. And
yeah. I mean, patients who have had bad results. Listen, maybe they would have had it no matter where they went, but there are times when the doctor you chose, maybe because it was more convenient or it was closer or they were cheaper or whatever it was, I think you have to take in everything into an account. You got to keep costs in mind, but at the same time, quality is quality, and especially when it comes to specific decision making. Take this medication, or maybe you shouldn't take this. Maybe you should take that medication, or maybe you should have this surgery. Maybe you shouldn't have this surgery. Maybe you should have this type of surgery. Maybe the same surgery done by a different doctor, a different specialist,
Right.
is better because they're just more a better surgeon, or they're more comfortable with that procedure. So there's so much that goes into healthcare decision making. It's just so complex. That's why, I try my thing is I try to explain to patients what I do really well. And hopefully, if they're doing due diligence on, if it's a shoulder problem or a hand or wrist issue, they're like, oh, this guy looks like he knows what he's talking about. And hopefully I can explain to them why that is.
Like all the patients we've actually seen you, they've been very, very happy. And that's important to us. Like for me as a primary care doctor, we're kind of like the coach behind the patient. Say, go here, go there, do this, do that. And like anyone I send my patients to, if I don't send my own family to it, I won't use them. Like,
Yeah.
and that's like very important. And the other thing is when you're in a system that's owned by somebody else, they're restricted in who they can send to. Like,
Yeah.
I will send to the best guy, whether they're a hospital employed guy, private employed guy,
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't care. I want my patients to get who
That
I would.
that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up before we signed off on this, because uh, when you're hired as a doctor into a hospital system,
Right,
you in your contract, most commonly, they are legally allowed to require you to refer only internally, which, by the way, if we did that, would be illegal.
I'm pretty sure it's illegal. They
It's
just found a
illegal.
way around it.
But
Yeah,
no, it's explicitly allowed, exemption in the Stark Law for healthcare systems under the premise of quality, and all this other business. Um, when we know, like you said, some of the best doctors are employed, but some of the best doctors are not employed. Some of them are in this system or that system, or independent.
right.
And we know, I mean, as doctors who've been around a little bit, we end up knowing
Who?
who's the
Right,
person you would go to,
right.
who would
Exactly.
I would send my family to. And so having the control to say, I'm going to send you to the best doctor, is something, especially as a primary doctor, you're doing this a lot,
Yeah.
is so important. So patients that are in your hands are not going to be just sent to the guy who's wearing the same hat down
Right.
the hallway.
And my patients know that, and that's what my patients know. Like when I send them somewhere, my patients know 100% fact that you know what, this is the best doctor that I can get treated for, and I'm not burdened by any rules or regulations where I can send my patients.
Hmm.
I mean, I will, and it sucks because I see, patients being sent places, and they'll come to me with a referral, and I'll say, no, don't go to this guy. He's not the person for you. You want to go to this person, even though they say this person, don't go there, go here. And your patients have to trust you. And truth of the matter, I get nothing from telling you to go to A to B. I literally means nothing in my life except that
Right.
my soul feels better knowing that I tried to send you to the right person.
Hmm.
And that's what's the important part of being part of medicine is that you want to do the best in every way, not just in your care, but in
Yeah.
even guiding your patient to
And
the right
and just to put a cherry on top of that, there there are very few independent primary doctors these days. So a lot of times the primary doctors, as well-meaning as they are obligated to send only internally. In fact, their systems
right.
sometimes will not even list doctors outside of their
A little
health
bit.
system. And so you as a patient are directed internally into that system. And those doctors may be great, but maybe there's a better option. Maybe there's a closer option. Maybe there's someone else, and you won't have that option. Maybe you're not given that option. And so that's why it's so important. That's why I wanted to highlight what you're doing, which is so great. And I really appreciate you explaining it, because it takes like a long format to explain what you're doing. You just, no one really knows.
Yeah, and
So
I think that's really one of our big differentiators that we go out of our way to make sure wherever we send you is literally the best person we can think of.
yeah, well,
And
thank you for doing that. I mean, it's just, you
that's
know,
what I would do for my own brother,
yeah,
my own sister. That's what I do for my patients. I literally treat everyone the same way I would treat my family members, and I think that's one of the best things as a doctor. Like you can sleep at night knowing that you know what, this is the best guy, and I did the best thing I could with the knowledge that I had.
Listen, man, on that note, I'm gonna let you get
All
back
right.
to your family.
All right.
And thanks for coming out
Thank you
today.
very much, man.